All right, let's just dive right in. We're unpacking the source text today, and honestly, we're completely deconstructing this idea of what's actually holding us back. We all have these massive goals, right? We have visions for our lives, yet we somehow end up feeling stuck. Well, today, we're mapping out exactly why that happens. We're going to look at the hidden architecture of fear, how it locks us into this crazy cycle of comfort, and most importantly, how we can finally break out of the whole shebang. So, let me ask you something. When you picture fear, what does it actually look like in your head? For most of us, it's pretty visceral, right? Sweaty palms, racing heart, maybe that sudden paralyzing panic. We think of fear as this loud, aggressive alarm bell screaming at us to run away. But as our source material brilliantly points out, if we're only looking for that loud, cinematic panic, man, we're missing the much more dangerous trap being set for us every single day. Okay, Section 1, the subversive nature of fear. See, here's the thing. That heart-pounding fight-or-flight fear, it's actually highly inefficient for long-term control. It just burns way too much energy. So fear adapts. Sure, we have that mainstream idea of the adrenaline dump, but the text gives us this profound insight into how fear actually operates day to day. It uses cognitive hijacking. It dresses up as rational pragmatism or risk mitigation or just, common sense. It doesn't scream, "Don't do that, you're gonna die!" No. Instead, it sits right next to you and very quietly, very reasonably whispers, "Hey, why bother? You're good right here. It's been a long day. Let's just tackle this tomorrow." It's incredibly seductive because it doesn't feel like fear at all. It feels exactly like self-care. And the text totally redefines the battlefield with this concept. Fear doesn't control us by dominating our emotions. It controls us by quietly convincing us that our comfort is more important than happiness. I mean, think about that equation shift for a second. Fear wins when it subtly rewires your personal value hierarchy. It puts comfort, which the text basically defines as just the absence of friction, above happiness. And happiness, true self-actualization, well, that requires active, difficult, and often painful work. Fear literally wins the exact moment you decide that avoiding friction is your number one goal in life. Which leads us to Section 2, the paradox of avoidance. Now we're getting into the hidden, compounding cost of prioritizing all that comfort. The text states, real pain is the avoidance of pain. It kind of sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? Like, how in the world can avoiding something painful actually be the source of real pain? Well, the answer lies in this philosophical concept cited in the text called the backwards law. It draws heavily on thinkers like Alan Watts and various Eastern philosophies. And the principle is simple, but honestly, it's devastating. When you run from pain, the running itself becomes a chronic, low-grade torture. Trying to escape discomfort just mathematically backfires on you. By burning all your energy trying to insulate yourself from negative experiences, you're actually guaranteeing a life defined by them. Let's break down the mechanics of this. On one hand, you've got acute pain. This is what happens when you actually take a risk. Sure, you face short-term discomfort, maybe you get rejected, a venture fails, or you're just physically exhausted. It hurts, absolutely, but it's sharp and it passes. But then you have chronic pain. This is what you buy when you avoid the risk. You get this permanent background radiation of existential angst, regret, and that heavy burden of what-ifs. The source text makes it crystal clear. Avoiding the short-term, acute pain of a bruised ego basically guarantees this vastly more destructive, self-inflicted stagnation. You're not escaping pain. You're just trading a sharp, useful pain for a dull, permanent ache. All right, Section 3, the inversion of failure. Here, the text completely flips our traditional societal definition of failure right on its head. Get this. The only real risk is taking no risks. The only real failure is having no failures. And look, this isn't just some cheesy motivational poster slogan. The text presents this as a mathematical certainty. Safely maintaining the status quo is literally the highest risk strategy you can employ over a long enough timeline. Why? Because the world is constantly shifting around you. If you just stand still, you are essentially marching backward. To really understand why, the text introduces the bioadaptive framework. Think of it like physical training, right? Step 1, you go to the gym and lift weights to failure. That's objective feedback from your environment. Step 2, that failure causes microscopic tearing in your muscle fibers. Super uncomfortable. But then step 3, your body repairs those tears and your human potential is calibrated upward. That's growth. Your muscles absolutely cannot grow without that microscopic tearing. And in the exact same way, your mind and your capabilities simply cannot grow without the friction of failure. So the core takeaway here is a bit of a reality check. 0 failures does not equal mastery. A lot of people think, hey, I haven't failed at anything in 5 years. I must be crushing it. No, actually scratch that. All that means is that your external environment is perfectly matched to your current existing capacity. And if your environment perfectly matches your capacity, zero adaptation is happening. You're just stuck in a massive stagnation trap. Moving on to section 4, diagnosing the comfort trap. I'm going to ask you directly, are you choosing comfort over happiness right now? Let's look at the symptoms so we can honestly evaluate our own lives. The first major symptom is desensitization, or what the text calls the gilded cage. When you prioritize comfort, yeah, you successfully numb the lows. You avoid those crushing defeats. But here is the tragic catch. Numbing the lows inherently caps the highs. True fulfillment requires vulnerability. It requires exposure to the unpredictable chaos of the world. By successfully insulating yourself from chaos, you accidentally insulate yourself from joy. The cage might be gilded, but make no mistake, it's still a cage. The second symptom is massive cognitive dissonance. Deep down, your intrinsic biological drive knows you're playing small. It knows you're capable of so much more. But, admitting that you're just afraid, that is super painful to the ego. So what do? Our minds manufacture these incredibly elaborate justifications. We blame timing, we blame the markets, we blame our energy levels or our crazy schedules. We create these brilliant, logical excuses just to keep our self-image intact, all so we can avoid taking that terrifying step of actually taking action. Finally, section 5, becoming the unshackled self. So the million-dollar question, how do we fix this? How do we actually break free from this biological imperative for safety and achieve real liberation? Well, the unshackled self operates on a concept popularized by Nassim Taleb called anti-fragility. This is a state where a person doesn't just put up with stress and uncertainty, they don't just endure it or bounce back from it. Instead, they actually require it to thrive. It's like the myth of the Hydra, right? You cut off one head and two grow back. The unshackled self uses chaos, stress, and failure as the literal fuel for their own evolution. But how do they actually do that? By radically changing their relationship with outcomes. On one side, you have the trapped mindset, outcome-driven identity. This tells you, I failed, therefore I am a failure. Your entire self-worth is tied to the result. But the unshackled mindset, that's all about decoupled action. It completely strips away the fear because it says, okay, this protocol didn't work, let's pivot to the next one. Failure is no longer a reflection of your soul, it is strictly objective data. You completely decouple your identity from the immediate result. And when you decouple action from outcome like that, you radically shift your time horizon. Think about it. A comfort-driven life optimizes for the next hour. It wants the comfortable couch right now. It avoids the difficult confrontation today, and it just settles for the predictable, safe payoff. But the liberated life, it optimizes for the next decade. Because you're no longer terrified of short-term failure, you are suddenly willing to swallow immense friction today for the chance at asymmetrical, massive long-term payoffs down the road. You're basically trading the comfort of the hour for the mastery of the decade. Which brings us to the ultimate question posed by the text. I want to leave you with this final thought experiment. Who would you be if you felt absolutely no need to stay comfortable and safe? Seriously. If you stripped away that biological whisper telling you to just sit back and do it tomorrow, what would you actually be capable of building? Think about that. Until next time, keep exploring.